Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to our 188th Running Online Sports Economics Seminar. It's a pleasure to be back after a week away. This week we have David Castells Quintana. He's presenting Club Football and Economic Dynamism, a regional analysis for Europe. Before David gets going, I'm just going to point you to, if you happen to see it, your reminder notice today for the event included all future seminars. So next week we'll have Jennifer Dorling from Bond University in Australia presenting, and then Dave Berry in February. But there are also lots of deadlines coming up. So you may have noticed that the deadline just passed for Dennis Coates' second University of Maryland Baltimore County Sports Economics Conference, which looks like a really interesting event. Maybe Dennis might yet allow you to submit a late abstract. Other deadlines coming up. The deadline for the 11th Mass Sport Conference, which is going to be in Luxembourg this year and is going to be in July. And you see, June 4th to the 6th, Mass Sport 11 in Luxembourg. The deadline for submissions for that is end of the month, January the 31st. So that's coming up quickly. So please do look out for that. Announced this week was the I have to find it now. It's in May the 5th and 6th, the 9th Athens University of Economics and Business Sports Analytics Workshop. That's in Athens, surprisingly enough, and is a fantastic event in a wonderful place. Please do consider that. The deadline for submissions for that is the 10th of March, and there's a website, and I will put all the information both in the chat here and in the WhatsApp group as well. And just as a reminder, there is a WhatsApp group for Roses. The chat in Teams doesn't always work. And so if you do want to join the WhatsApp group, please do. And I guess just as a final reminder before I let David get going, another reminder of the conference I'm organising at the stadium behind me, which is next month, February the 14th and 15th, featuring Kieran Maguire, Price of Football fame, Christina Philippou, and Stefan Szymanski, who is here, and Alex Kremer as editors of the Sports Economics Review, which sponsors the Roses series and will sponsor that conference. The conference will feature Avram Grant and a couple of people from the world of football analytics, based at Lincoln City Football Club and Bradford City Football Club. Promises to be a really interesting event at the forefront of academia and industry. If you want more information about that, again, please let me know. David is going to take away his talk. He's happy to take questions as he goes along. And so if you do have questions, raise your hand, and David is happy to take your questions. So David, all yours.
All right. Okay. Thank you, James. Thanks for all the info on the conferences that I was not aware of. So that's nice. I'll try to apply to some of them. What about the one in Gijón?
I didn't mention that. I've not yet got information on the call for papers.
All right. Okay.
I will try and find out more information. The dates of the conference are 9th and 10th of May.
Yeah. All right.
James, okay, I will send you later.
Great, thank you, Julio.
All right, nice. Yes, good. All right, and please do add me to the chat if you can. I'll be happy to.
Will do. If you send me a phone number, I'll add you.
All right. Okay. Good. All right. So let's get started. So thanks for the invitation. It's really a pleasure for me to present this paper in front of you guys. So let me start by saying that I'm not, say, an expert on sport economics, as some of you are. So it'd be great to get some insights and comments from you. I usually work on more on development economics and a little bit of regional economics. So part of this, so to explain you part of the like the background of the paper. So this is it's a regional analysis for Europe from my background in regional science, regional economics. We're looking at economic dynamism. Mainly, you see that the key variable for the moment is economic growth. And again, that's from my background in development economics. It is Roberto Gasquez, my co-author, who did a PhD thesis in football, and so this is joint work with him, and this is sort of the how the paper came up to being. So from his interest in football and my interest in regional analysis, growth, and that. So yeah, so what we do in the paper is basically look at club football. In previous papers, he had taken a look at national teams. All right. So what we wanted to do here was to do something different and look at clubs and take a look at clubs in Europe. And just to study, so the paper is pretty straightforward. Just study this potential connection between performance of these clubs and economic dynamism in the regions. All right. So let me try to motivate the work a little bit. But I guess so for you guys should be pretty straightforward. This is not just let me. Okay. All right. So the motivation. So again. Most of you, of course, are aware of this. Sport practice is key in quality of life. So it's something that people that practice sport at competitive but also amateur level realizes. But also the sport industry is a significant one, especially nowadays, right? So in Europe, it is estimated that at least between 2 and 4% of GDP is linked to the sport industry, right? And it accounts for also around 3% of employment. So it's quite a large industry nowadays, worldwide. But again, these figures are for Europe. And in Europe, football, European football, not American football in particular, is the most important sport, right? So worldwide, but again, especially in Europe, you guys know, those in Europe, that football is huge, right? In terms of not only, of course, in terms of the sort of the business, the industry, but also in terms of the audience, in terms of fans, in terms of what it means for a lot of people, right? So and football at the national level, as I mentioned, but also at the club level, right? And in Europe, again, club level football has high popularity, right? It's even a symbol of regional pride. So I'm here in Barcelona. Very happy to be sort of, even though it's online, presenting for this organized from Reading. So thanks, James, because I was explaining, James, that I was in Reading as an Erasmus student some years ago. But yeah, so right now I'm in Barcelona, and for instance, in Barcelona, you guys know, so as in many other places, the performance of the club is very important. It's a symbol of regional pride. So if Barca wins something, we are all very happy, and we think that Barcelona is a great city and all that, right? So yeah, it has the potential to mobilize important economic resources, also to attract investment, to attract tourism. And so that's sort of like the motivation to look at the economic impact of club football. So these are just some pictures. Again, I'm biased here, so I'm giving you pictures from mainly Barcelona, except bottom right is Bernabeu in Madrid. But again, just to, I mean, so to give you an idea of what it means when the match takes place. So for instance, big stadiums now Camp Nou now under reconstruction, that it hosts close to 100,000 fans. So it's a lot of people, plus all the people watching the games on the bars, plus the celebrations afterwards, right? And so not only that, but what I'm trying to show you here with the bottom right picture is that, so it's also everything that happens by the side of the match, right? So in Bernabeu, in the stadium in Madrid, it's usually, so it's famous for being the place where some business are made. Florentino Perez, president of Madrid, he invites very important people, politicians, but also entrepreneurs. And so it also is an opportunity to do a lot of business, to make investments. And so yeah, so that's also what we had in mind when we were thinking about the paper. So yeah, so the aim is to study this connection between football success and economic performance at the regional level. As I said, we're going to focus on club level football in European regions. And we do this empirically by building a unique data set. We have information for close to 400 football clubs in Europe. This is mainly first and second division in Europe. And we match this with economic information for close to 300, not three European regions in 26 countries. So we have 26 leagues if you want. So, and we look at the, as I was saying, so first and second division in these 26 leagues. And we match this with the economic performance of the region, right? We do this for this time window from 2000 to 2020. So it's quite long period of time. And let me clarify right from the start that given part of the audience, so the main data set does not include the UK. I'm afraid, I'm sorry. So these 26 countries do not include the UK because matching the data here was, especially since Brexit, so your fault, guys. So it's difficult to match. But I'm gonna show you some regressions where we do have. So we try to include some clubs from the UK and the economic performance of the regions. All right. So a little bit of theory before we get into the empirics. So again, just to highlight some previous papers. So basically why to expect club football to have an impact on economic growth at the regional level. So we thought, okay, so one channel could be human capital accumulation and technical progress. So there is evidence of this, or at least theoretical insight in the literature, right? For instance, that sport improves health, and that may have, and again, also an impact on productivity and growth. There are some papers highlighting this. There is also evidence on the connection between sport practice and education. And finally, directly on productivity, right? So that's some good papers highlighting this connection with human capital and productivity. But not only that, there's also insights and some evidence on the social functions that sports provide. And the key element of sport and sport performance in building social capital, especially as I was saying, at the city and regional level. Also at the national level when we're talking about national teams, right? So there are insights on the integration aspect of sports, the fact that it increases civil pride, community spirit, the prestige of either the country or the region, and this unifying element to civic life, no? So think, for instance, as I was saying, that the football match is also an opportunity to meet with family, with friends, to go to the bar, and this creates, again, this social capital and this sort of unifying element and pride, no, in belonging to a community, right? So all of this has been recognized by the UN, no, this unique power to attract, mobilize, and inspire that sports have. So some evidence or work that we could relate to. So there is evidence on the role of especially sports, the college level, mega events, right? So there is a little bit of evidence on mainly case studies on how this tends to have an impact on GDP and economic activity and also on employment, right? So I list here some papers on that. Some of them focus on football, all right? But most evidence here is mainly descriptive, as I was saying, or case studies, and in many cases is for the US, all right? There is also some more evidence on the role of sports in economic performance. So in this case, closer to what we're doing, all right? And then finally, as I mentioned at the beginning, so my co-author and with other co-authors, they did some work on how the success of the national football team can be an indicator also of the development, so the level of development of that country, all right? So here is where we want to sort of try to contribute. We realized we found that there was very limited evidence at the regional level, and we couldn't find, to the best of our knowledge, nothing at the club level for and connecting that with European regions. And that's why we wanted to contribute with this. All right. So any questions up to here? No? All right. So I'll then tell you a little bit about the data. Let me check on my time as well. So for economic dynamism, as I was saying, for the moment, we're going to be looking at GDP per capita in levels and growth for the 2 decades of analysis. All right. We're going to do this mainly relying on data from Eurostat, and that's why we ended up leaving the UK aside for more like for robustness or sensitivity analysis. So we're gonna use data at the NOTS 3 level. That's in Spain, that's province level, right? So we think that the best sort of spatial level of analysis because so the club is very important for the city, of course, but in many cases, especially with large clubs, a lot of funds are also in the regions or in the nearby sort of area, so the surroundings of the city as well. So that's why we thought that the level of analysis could, or the best level of analysis was not 3 regions in Europe, all right? And also due to data availability, right? So at the city level, we wanted to do something at the city level, but again, we thought we could be leaving a lot of what's happening outside, plus collecting the data in an homogeneous way for this sort of for the 20 years, for all the cities that we're studying, it was very challenging, right? So for club level football success, we're going to rely on 2 variables. First, we're going to use the ELO ratings. So this gives us, again, and here this is basically what defines our sample in terms of clubs. Here we have, so we were able to put the data together for 395 clubs year after year from 2000 to 2020, all right? And so note here that in many cases we have one, so in most cases we have 1 club per NOTS 3, and that's again why we chose NOTS 3. But in some cases, especially sort of big cities, so we have more than 1 club. And so we're going to play with this as well, all right? So that's the first sort of measure that we use. And the second one that we're using for the moment is winning the National League. And this, we just basically coded manually. And we took a look at the 20 years in the 26 leagues, and we just found who the winner was, all right? We're hoping to do more here, but that's what we have for the moment, all right? And we merging these two with other socioeconomic data, and I'm going to show you what we have in terms of controls and potential mechanisms. Just some descriptive stats. So not much, I mean, to highlight here. Basically, just to say that there is enough variability here, of course, in terms of the rating, in terms of GDP per capita, we have some regions that are relatively poor, some regions that are much richer, and also in terms of economic growth. Right? So throughout the period of analysis, we have some regions that have actually decreased in terms of GDP per capita, and others have experienced fast economic growth. All right, so we're going to try to play with this variability in the data. All right, let me give you a map. This is club level performance looking at the ELO. So here we just map the average of 2018, 2020, so the last 3 years in our sample. All right, and yeah, I mean, of course, you go so. This to show you that you have a little bit of everything everywhere. So if you take a look at the ELO rating, so you expect to find top clubs, of course, will be those that some of you may have in mind. So I don't know, Liverpool, Manchester in the UK, I don't know, Arsenal in Europe. So you'll have Madrid and Barcelona in Spain, Juve, Bayern Munich. But this to tell you that, so it's not dominated by a particular country or a particular region. So you have a little bit of everything everywhere. And that's good because we don't want our analysis to be guided just by one country or one sort of group of clubs or no. So you have quite a lot of variability here as well. All right. You can here, you can see Barcelona here. All right. So That will be at the sort of the top in terms of the yellow because of Football Club Barcelona, but you also have Madrid. You'll have and again in Italy you'll have Juventus and all right. Anyways, this is basically just I usually show this just to piss my friends from Madrid off. So if we look at the Elo rating in 2018. So I have to say that this was not random. I just look at the last 3 years. Football Club Barcelona happens to be at the top. So by now you can guess that I'm a Barca fan. All right. So, but anyway, just was to show you that. So how you have clubs from different countries. So looking at 2018, Barca will be top. Then Juventus, Bayern, Real Madrid there. Then Paris Saint-Germain, Dortmund, Napoli. Right. Sevilla, Ajax. All right. No one from Real Madrid complaining so far? Okay, so I'll continue. So let me just show you some scatters now. So here, what we're doing is just looking at the connection between the yellow and GDP per capita in levels, all right? Figure 1A is for all clubs, and figure 1B is just taking one club per region. And what I want to show you here is just, so it is a clear positive connection. This of course has to go through econometric analysis, we'll do that. But just by looking at the yellow and the level of GDP per capita, we already see a very clear positive connection, right? So regions where the GDP per capita is higher tend to have clubs that are higher in the Elo rating. A little bit more interesting than that is this one, where we do the same, but now rather than looking at GDP per capita in levels, we look at GDP per capita growth, right? Plus, if you take a look at the note, we're including regional fixed effects and year fixed effects. So this is capturing the evolution over time. So this is a little bit more interesting, as I was saying. This is telling me that there is also a positive connection, a bit lower than the previous one, but it's still there. So a positive connection between having a club with a high Elo rating and experiencing high economic growth, right? And that's basically, so this is basically the argument of the paper. And what we try to do is to check for this through econometric analysis, right? So how are we going to do it? So the first thing we're going to do is run this two-way fixed effects panel regressions. So the dependent variable is going to be GDP per capita growth. And we're going to regress this on the Elo rating. And of course, we measure the Elo rating at the beginning of the period, right? So previous to the growth, to economic growth, that we're going to measure either in 1 year or 3 years, all right? So we're going to look at yearly growth, but that may have a lot of noise. So we also gonna, so it's the standard in the literature of long-run economic growth. So we're gonna aggregate over 3-year periods, right? So this is two-way fixed effects, as I was saying. We're including period fixed effects to control for global shocks affecting all of Europe, and either region or club fixed effects, all right, to control for time invariant regional specific characteristics or club specific characteristics. We're gonna cluster errors at the regional level, and we're gonna control for initial income per capita, again, standard in growth regressions. These are the first set of results, all right? So what I'm gonna show you here is, so the first two columns is looking at yearly growth. Columns 3 to 5 look at 3-year periods, right? In all cases, what you see is a positive and highly significant coefficient, indicating that in those regions where the club has a higher Elo rating, we see higher economic growth in the subsequent year or 3 years, right? These are the dynamics. So what we do is then take a look at the sort of the persistent of the impact, if you want. And so what you can see is that we find a positive and significant sort of coefficient up to 2 periods. And these are 3-year period. So this means that we see, if we believe there is an impact, we see this impact for up to 6 years, right? Afterwards, it vanishes. So I like this graph because I find it sort of kind of, I mean, is what I was expecting, right? So the club does better. I expect to see some economic growth in the region, not forever, for the next 3-6 years if the club is doing really well, but then the impact should vanish. And now reinforcing also for the argument is the -3 that you look at sort of on the left, right? So this is like a simple placebo test. I'll show you more tests in a minute, but this is a simple one. So this is telling me that so the dynamics here go from ELO to GDP per capita growth and not the other way around. Let me show you some sensitivity analysis. So what I do here is basically two simple exercises. First, I split between major leagues and the rest of leagues. Major leagues are Spain, Italy, France, and Germany. And then the rest of leagues, okay? Just to see if this was driven, so if this coefficient is driven by just the major leagues, and that's not the case, right? So it's still there for the rest of leagues, right? In columns 3 and 4, I do something similar, but in this case, splitting between high and low elo clubs. This was so what we had in mind here was, is this just driven by, say, Barça, Madrid, the top clubs? But you see that it's actually the opposite. The coefficient is higher for low elo clubs. So this is not driven by a particular sort of group of top clubs. It is happening throughout the rating, right? So highly ranked or lowly ranked clubs. More sensitivity analysis. So another thing that we did was splitting between, in this case, looking at regions between rich and poor countries. So regions, sorry. So again, saying, is this just driven by very rich regions or very poor regions? And that's not the case. You see that the coefficient is virtually the same. So it's not driven by a particular sort of group of rich or poor regions. Similar with the time. So we look at pre-2010 and post-2010. And again, the coefficient is still significant in both cases. So it's not driven by a particular sort of period neither, right? And in the last column, this is what I was saying here. We merge with the UK. So I think it's just the Premier League. And even including the UK, the coefficient is still positive and significant. All right. So that was in terms of sensitivity. Now in terms of robustness to the estimation. So in columns 1 and 2, we play with the specification in terms of the fixed effect. So if you take a look in column 1, we include region-specific trends, and in column 2, we include club-specific trends. This is very demanding on identification. And in both cases, the coefficient is still positive and significant, right? In column 3, rather than looking at growth, we look at GDP per capita in levels, all right? Given the fact that we're including the lag, this is sort of to have a dynamic model. The coefficient is still positive and significant, but basically, so the idea here is to be able to do something like what we do in column 4, is to estimate by GMM techniques. In this column is system GMM, which is sort of, so the idea here is to acknowledge for persistence. And it's a common technique when you have dynamic models like the one we have, all right? And so the coefficient goes down in value quite significantly, but remember, we're looking at GDP per capita in levels, not growth rates. But in any case, it's still highly significant. So that reassures of our main results. Second thing that we do, or let me stop there for a moment. Anyone with a question or a comment or? All good? Yep. All right, let me continue then. So now we're going to look at the impact of winning the title. All right, so we're going to regress similar than before. We're going to exploit our panel and we're going to regress growth on GDP per capita, the yellow, but also winning the title the year before. All right, again, we're going to include period fixed effects and region or club fixed effects, and we're going to cluster errors at the regional level, right? So these are the panel results. So what is this telling us is that winning the league title seems to be correlated with subsequent economic growth, all right? Even controlling for the yellow rating. So one thing is the impact of the yellow rating, and on top of that, there seems to be an impact of winning the league, all right? But here, if we split between high and low elo clubs, we realize that the impact is mainly driven by low elo clubs. This is basically saying that winning the league title is especially important for the region when the club is a relatively modest club. If you look at the last column where we put all clubs together again, you see that the impact of winning the league title disappears, is no longer significant. It is highly significant when interacted with the dummy of belonging to the low part of the elo rating. I think this result is interesting and sort of makes sense. So what's my explanation for this? So if you are in Spain, so Madrid winning the league, I mean, it's fun, it's nice for fans in Madrid, they get happy, but it's not that sort of surprising. It's not like a huge event. It's not really gonna change the economy of Madrid, right? The same with Barca, or the same with Manchester City in the UK, right, in England. Or so when top clubs win the league, that's sort of what we expect from them, right? But when a more modest club wins the league, that's a huge event, no? That's a huge success. So it is expected that's gonna mobilize more resources. People are gonna get more excited. So it is more likely that the region reacts more to that event.
David, can I interrupt you?
Yes, please
I
go
have a
ahead.
question from Alex.
David, just to understand, what's the meaning of the size of the effect 3.01?
Pardon, what the size of?
What's the size? What does this size mean? The 3.017.
Yes. If I don't remember wrong, I have it in the paper. I forgot to say so. So we have a preliminary version online. You guys are welcome to take a look. So let me try to remember. I think this is not negligible. This means that so if I'm getting this right, so the region will be growing 3 percentage points more in the subsequent period.
Is it 3%? So what's the outcome variable? Is it the growth or the log of growth?
Growth.
Growth. So you actually claim that you have a growth of 3 percentage points. It seems to be too good to be true. Let me say this.
True, yeah.
Let me put it this way, because this means that we have to go to the mayor of each city and say, look, we have to now to invest into football, and we will grow 3% more than if we don't invest. Does this make sense? That's the question.
Yeah, I know what you mean. So it is a bit high, not crazy high. But yeah, I mean, it may be due to the fact that we're still missing some controls. I was trying to find it. So yeah.
So my question, what is the average growth of an area in your data? What's the average of this your outcome variable?
The average, no, I don't, yeah. So the average is 3.
3. So you say you increase your growth by 100%. That's what you say.
Yeah, but I might be wrong. So yeah, don't trust me too much on that, because I don't have that in here in the slides. So I will have to check properly in the paper.
Trust me, I don't trust you. I don't trust you.
No. I mean, don't don't trust me in the sense that it's 100%. It may be much less. Yeah. I would have to check that. What I can tell you, so it's not negligible. It's not really small. It wasn't way too much neither. But yeah, but it's true that we probably have to check on the magnitude of the coefficient. All right. So yeah, so this is with winning the league title, and so what I'm showing you here is the same with the UK. All right. With the UK, we still, so actually when we include the UK, the coefficient goes down a little bit, but not much, all right? And it's still highly significant. So based on this, an exercise that we do is looking at sort of what we call unexpectedly winning the title. So the idea here was to say, okay, based on previous results, I just told you that most of the sort of the tracking seems to come from low elo clubs, so modest clubs. We said, okay, so let's take a look at situations when a club that wins the title and this is somehow unexpected. All right, and so you see that one of the examples that I have for you here is Leicester in 2016, right? So Leicester is not a usual winner of the Premier League, all right, and it suddenly wins the Premier League. This is, of course, huge for the region, all right? And there is a lot of evidence on the impact of this. In this case, the impact was huge, right? It boosted the local economy by 140 million pounds, supported extra or additional 2,500 jobs, and generated 78 million pounds in tax revenue for local authorities. So this was a huge event, of course, for the region. So that's what we want to do in this. So there is evidence of this, again, case studies, a lot of evidence for Leicester. So what we want to do is exploit our panel and see if we find something there, right? So we're going to look only at regions whose clubs didn't win the league between 2000 and 2005. We play a little bit with this, 2004, 2007, right? So at the beginning of our sample. And so we assume that these are not sort of like expected winners, all right? And we see if some of these clubs win the league afterwards. In this case, so we think that winning the league afterwards is a special event for the region, all right? And so we expect that this is going to have a high impact in the region. This also allows us to do a simple sort of diff and diff, all right? So, and these are the results, right? So we look at, so just like before, we have GDP per capita. So the dependent variable is growth. We control for the levels, GDP per capita in logs. We control for the Elo rating. And then, so we have this dummy, so the post 2005. And then, of course, we're looking at the interaction of that with league title, right? So if you look at column 1, so that coefficient is positive and significant. It's actually not that different from the coefficient that I showed you before, right? So, and this is suggesting that winning the league title when it's unexpected, this has a significant impact on subsequent economic growth of the region, all right? We play with leaks and lags here as well. And you can see that, so if we look at the previous 2 periods, the coefficient is still positive and significant. Again, this is telling me that there is some persistence, and this is expected. But if we look at the lead, so sort of like a placebo test, the coefficient is no longer significant, and this is what we would expect, no? So winning the league in the future doesn't have an effect on economic growth today, right? So, and this is including the UK, and results don't change much. It's actually very, very similar, right? This is the plot of the dynamics, all right? So you can see that, so you have nothing before, then if you unexpectedly win the league, you're going to have a positive coefficient once again, so for over 6 years, and then the coefficient goes back to non-significant, being non-significant. So yeah, so that's in terms of this sort of unexpectedly winning the title. Let me clarify here. So we have, I think it was around 40 events. So the sample here, I mean, we still play with the panel, but situations like this, like a modest club unexpectedly winning the title, is only like 40 cases. Not that many, but not too few neither. It's not just Leicester in the UK, but in England or some few. No, you still have this happening throughout Europe in our 20 years of analysis. All right. Last sort of thing that I wanted to show you was some work we're doing on potential mechanisms. So we wanted to explore in more depth. So what exactly could be connecting sort of this, so to analyze exactly how the impact of performance goes to to economic growth. But here it was challenging in terms of data, right? So I'm going to show you so these results are with employment and with investment. We trying to do something with visitors, but we're still not there yet. And we wanted to do something with sort of like expenditure in bars and restaurants. But again, that's a bit trickier as well in terms of data, right? But anyways, in terms of employment and investment, so there seems to be something going on there. So we believe these are probably two main mechanisms, and in line with anecdotal evidence, as I told you for Leicester. So I mean, when the club does well, there is going to be more employment, not only directly by the club, but I mean, again, in bars. I mean, more stores open, more tours, more visits to the museums, and then of course in terms of investment, right? So I don't know. Imagine so when Leicester won the Premier League, suddenly so a lot of people are investing in the region to open bars, to open restaurants. I don't know, club up near the football stadium. So we believe these are two main mechanisms. But if you look at column 5, the coefficient goes down, but it's still positive and significant. So we believe that's why we believe there must be something else, and we want to explore that. Remember when I was discussing the theory that so it's not only tangible things, investment, employment, and consumption and expenditure. There is also an intangible asset. No, it's the idea of social capital, civil sort of pride. So we believe that we know that this also plays a role in long run economic growth. So the thing is that capturing this empirically is difficult, but so we think that part of that is probably is still there, right? The role of or the impact through increased social capital, if you want. I'm gonna conclude here. We have looked at the connection between sporting success and economic development, right? I showed you some empirical evidence for club football performance, looking at close to 400 football clubs in Europe and economic growth of close to 300, not 3 European regions, plus the UK in sensitivity analysis, right? Our results suggest significant association between performance and regional economic growth, as I showed you, as I guided you through the results, all right? And of course, this supports previous evidence or is in line with previous evidence in the literature, but I think it complements it really well in the sense that, as I was saying, to the best of our knowledge, is novel in terms of looking at regions in Europe and club level performance. In terms of further research, so we're trying to get more data into the analysis, hopefully to have more controls, more robustness checks, also to explore more mechanisms. We're trying to build an IV that may help with identification, and we've done what we can so far in terms of the specification with two-way fixed effects in terms of system GMM, as I showed you, also with the diff and diff. But we also want to do some IV estimation, so we're working on that. And yeah, so in terms of mechanisms, as I said, we have taken a quick look at employment and investment. We also want to look at visitors and expenditure. And I'm going to leave it there. I'm happy to discuss more or expand more on some of the results.
Great. Thank you very much, David. A really interesting talk on the role of football clubs in their local economies. We've got lots of time for questions and comments. So if anyone does have a question or a comment they'd like to ask David, please do raise your hand and we can get on with the Q&A session. Peter.
Thanks, James. Thanks, David. Interesting paper. Just a couple of comments.
Yeah.
And the first one I may have missed in the kind of discussion when you set the modelling up. So obviously some of these regions have more than one football club.
Yeah.
So there may be situations where one club is successful in 1 year and the other club is less successful. So how do you account for that? Or do you just simply take the bigger of the two clubs in a particular nuts region? Because I think you mentioned at the start you take one club. Is that right? Or did I mishear that?
Yeah, no, it's a good point. So let me clarify. So we have most regions. I don't know the number, but the vast majority of regions. So in the because we look in just at first and second division. So most regions have only one club. In those cases where we have two clubs, we do the regressions twice, basically. So sometimes we include all the clubs, and in that case, the region will be repeated, which is a bit, yeah, not ideal, but so we do it like that. And but I think for so most of the results that I showed you at the end, at least, we just take the largest club. Yeah, so I know it's not the best solution, but we couldn't come up with anything better. Aggregating didn't really make much sense here. So yeah, I mean, in Barcelona here, when I present this for supporters of Espanyol, which is the other team, they hate me, of course, but they hate me either way because they don't like Barca, so I'm not losing anything there.
Right. The second question is obviously you focused on the successful or the unexpected wins of titles of certain teams. I'm not convinced by the Leicester figures that you provided. Not your figures. These are obviously figures from elsewhere. I'm pretty convinced they're not as high as what you're kind of reporting them. But one thing I did think about was, what about unsuccessful teams? So obviously some of the smaller teams might get relegated. You also might get smaller teams who are then promoted into these kind of top tier leagues, and that also might have an impact on the local economies within these regions. So is that something you kind of exploring? I've seen a couple of studies. I can't remember the name of the author, but they've done something similar to what you've done. I think geographically, they've just looked at the UK, as far as I was aware. They might have done Europe, but they're particularly looking at promotion and relegation. So I think there's potentially scope here to kind of look at that aspect as well in terms of your analysis. So just your kind of thoughts on that as well, David.
Sure, no, that's a great comment, Peter. Thanks. Totally. I mean, so what we want to do. So we want to include Champions League titles, right? We want to include. So we want to, basically, because of the structure of the panel and to keep it simple, we were looking at and to have a winner in every country and all that. So we just looked at the national leagues, right? But we also want to play with, so we also have the European competitions, Champions League, UEFA, and all that. So we want to look at that as well. And we also want to look at relegation. So it's true, and so we think that could be very interesting. Well, and promotion, yeah. So for from second to first division, and see whether there is symmetry in the results or not. Probably there is an asymmetry that could be interesting to explore. So yeah, for sure, that I think that's a nice sort of avenue for to improve the paper. Yeah.
Great, thanks, David. I'll let others contribute now.
And I think so. If I'll probably write to you if you have references on that, I will be super happy to look at those. Yeah, thanks.
Great, thanks, Pete. Next up was Julio.
Hi. I have some doubts about the ELO ranking because if you are analyzing the own league, the ELO is not so important. It's the difference between among the other competitors in the same league. I mean, if you are playing the league from Hungary, it's not so important that the ELO is so high, but it's the highest. So I have two ideas on this. I'm not sure whether I'm okay. It's just an idea looking at the handball and with the kids here. So I'm not sure. But maybe having especially for the titles and expected titles, having the probability of the winning the league. If you have the betting odds, it's quite easy to get the probability of winning the league, or maybe only normalizing the ELO within the league and season or something like that. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't make too much sense, but it's just an idea.
No, thank you, Julio. Yeah, I mean, totally. I mean, we were working with the ELO rating as being sort of almost ready to use, and to be able to compare all clubs sort of in Europe equally. But yeah, so if we want to look something that is sort of more the national level and in terms of expectedly or unexpectedly winning the league, probably looking at the probabilities would be interesting. Yeah, sure. So another, and in line with the comment before by Peter, is that the other thing that we thought was, so when we were trying to also so for identification as well, we thought, what if we look at clubs that were very close to winning the league, but they didn't win the league because of, I don't know, they lost 2 matches in the last sort of in the season or something like that. But yeah, again, that requires some work. But yeah, we think that could also be an interesting idea, or the same with relegation and promotion, right? So you were very close to being relegated, and then you were saved, and that also sort of like a success because you didn't get relegated. So those situations, and in terms of identification, is nicer because that's even more unexpected if it's just the last match that you lose or you win. Yeah.
Great, thanks, Julio. And Georgi has his hand up next.
Yes, David, thank you so much for the presentation. Really interesting stuff. Sort of echoing Peter's earlier point about teams in such large cities. So right away, what came to mind are the two leagues. So sort of remembering your map. There are teams from, I think, the Estonian and the Latvian leagues. Well, to my knowledge, 40% of the clubs come from the capital area in those countries. It's not quite, as drastic, let's say, in England, but there was still a couple seasons where I think 7 out of 20 clubs came from the Greater London area. So have you considered just excluding those multi-team cities and just focusing on monocentric cities? So for instance, if there's just one club like Real Sociedad in San Sebastian, for instance, in the Spanish context, just focusing on the cities that do have that one club in the first 2 tiers and excluding everything else, because then you cannot really differentiate between the impact. Plus, then your findings might not have as much of a validity to the mayor. So like to Alex's earlier point, coming to the mayor and saying that, hey, let's invest more into football. We don't actually know which team is sort of focused on the effect. Maybe the Tottenham fans are just happy to be 6th, or maybe that's coming from, I don't know, Arsenal, who is happy to be in the top 3. So, yeah, what do you think of that?
Yeah, no, it's a totally valid point, because yeah, going through the leagues, I realized that so we have 26 leagues. Well, that's continental Europe. So out of these 26, we have 15 that sort of, especially in the different diff analysis, this is basically built with 15 leagues, because the other 9 leagues, as you say, are very small. It's always the same team, and if anything, is the other team of the same city. So yeah, that's a bit tricky. But thanks for the suggestion. Maybe we can look at, rather than looking at the league, look at the city and then play with the composition of teams in the city. Yeah, thanks. Yeah, because it's true. Some you're right. Estonia, Latvia, and so it's nine countries, smaller ones, where there is not much going on, in the sense that, yeah.
Great. Thanks, Yogi. And then Gidon has his hand up next.
Yeah, I hope you can hear me okay. Thank you for this presentation. I come from a background of geography and urban studies, so I found some interesting insights here, but I would say some thoughts, concerns, or things to consider. One, say the Leicester example. You mentioned Leeds and Lags. The year before Leicester won the championship, they were also promoted. And so maybe the year they won the championship, hypothetically, the growth can be related to the fact they were promoted shortly before that. Would be a first just thought process on that. You know, what is the impact of the championship, or is the impact that, or is the impact, if any kind, related to the fact that by winning the championship, they also qualified for the Champions League? So now there's more events happening. So, you know, you can think about studies in generally related to the economic impact of sports. And there's some people who've done several studies on that and found various results, we'll call it that way. But I guess one concern I have is sort of the correlation versus causality. That throughout the study, there was sort of implied a lot of, you know, because of, and whereas it could be various other factors. So we don't know what the growth is, say. So you find a 3% growth. What happened if that 3% growth was actually associated with another event, or a boost, or an opening of a shopping mall, for instance, right? So I think you have to consider what is actually the nature of this growth to say, is it related or not? If we don't, you know, if Leicester won the championship, or some random team, say a smaller team won a championship in a smaller town, what does that mean? Well, often it means there are more events happening because they qualified for another tournament. But, you know, as someone has said, maybe another team nearby qualified and they play in the city nearby, but people go there, you know. I think the distribution between cities in Europe is so different that you have to consider other confounding factors that could impact these results. Also, you know, how is it performing relative to the general market? Because maybe there was a growth in a market, but you might find that that country's growth was more so. So, for example, say a team won the championship, and the following year you see some kind of signs of growth, but it's actually less than what happened in the rest of the country, say, for instance. So I'm just curious, like, if it's too big of a collection of cities that you have in this study, really identify an average pattern in a way that could be relevant. So again, going back to what Alex said, like 3%, is that true for every place? How does that vary? What does that compare to other places? So these are just thoughts that I had listening to the study. And, you know, spatial autocorrelation, right? You know, if the city nearby had substantial growth, it might have, you know, trickled down effects. How do you account for that, for instance, in certain places? Those are just some thoughts I'd have to sort of consider.
Sure. Yeah, thanks. Let me, so these are actually several things, right? Let me try to answer some of them. So I mean, so we think that, so we have a thing that so we have a quite rich panel here, and so we're playing with fixed effects and time trends. So we hope that we sort of it's not perfect, sure, but we think that we sort of capturing a lot with so imagine I mean so again we have the region but also club specific fixed effects, the region fixed effects, the time fixed effects, and we have in some regressions I show you trends, so that's controlling for the whole growth trend of that region in the period. So in that case, we're looking at deviations from the trend, right? So in that way, we think we're controlling for. So part of your comment in the sense that what if there is growth taking place, or so in that case, we're just looking at deviations. So in that case, it's more like a chalk. Now, I don't claim that so you're totally right. I don't claim that so you win the league and that's gonna like magically so I'm happy with reading the results as a lot of other things are happening. If they are correlated with the fact that the club is winning for instance in the so winning the league, that's basically the argument. So it's not just the money that comes because of the club is winning, it's everything that is happening. So that's the argument that more visits, maybe a shopping mall opens, that's great. I mean, it's boosting economic activity, right? Now, in terms of, it's true that so there might be spillover effects, all right? And it's difficult to control for that because first, we don't have all regions. We have close to 400 regions, but there are more than twice that in Europe. So we don't have all regions to see exactly how the spillover effects are. And so that's why we're also looking at NOTS 3. So we don't want to look at the city because in that case, it is very true what you say that actually, for instance, Barcelona football, so the stadium, the Camp Nou is close to Hospitalet. That's another city, and that a lot of fans are there. So if you look at the city, you're missing a lot. NOTS 3 is the whole of the province. So that's already considering spillover effects within the province, right? Now, neighboring province, if in the sample, it will most likely then have its own club. So again, it's not perfect, but I think so in terms of the spillovers, we're doing what we can. We cannot do spatial econometrics because again, we don't. So we could, but I will have to find a way to define neighbors in a very awkward way because I don't have all regions with a club. Yeah, but I mean, all of these are valid concerns. Yeah, I mean, we're doing what we can. We hopefully wanna, as I was saying, capture more mechanisms. But yeah, for the moment, that's what we have.
Great, thanks. I just was wondering, kind of related, is obviously when you showed the map, there was quite a lot of regions without a club at all. And I'm not, it's really not even a question. I'm just kind of wondering about that because it kind of makes me think that there's some kind of Tobit type, there's going from no club to a club, and then the club has a continuous level of success. And I don't know whether that has any impact on estimation, just kind of thinking out loud, and I don't know whether you thought about that as well.
Yeah, I did think a lot about that when I was looking at the map, but yeah, I just really don't know what to do with that. Yeah, I mean, this it's not that these regions don't have a club. All regions will have a club. It's just that they are not in first or second division.
Yeah.
And so I don't have the data on the performance. I mean, I could go and sort of try to code that sort of manually, or I don't know, doing some search. Of course, I could try to, but yeah, I mean, the story is about sort of professional success, right? So either first division or second division. If you win in your sort of fifth division or regional sort of tournament, well, I don't think that's gonna have a huge economic impact in the whole of the region. Not to say that it's not a great sporting success for the team, but in terms of the economy of the region, it's not gonna have such an impact.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I mean, I've mentioned to you that I've been looking at this in England, and even if you consider, N divisions of football, you go very deep, you still find some local authorities the level of geography in England, have zero football clubs. So it's not necessarily. There's certainly an aspect of that if you look just at the really successful league of the world.
Yeah, but actually, now that you mention, I mean, so don't get me wrong. So it's not that they don't have an economic impact. It's just that it's going to be, of course, much more geographically limited. So in that case, it will make sense to look at the neighbor or a neighborhood or the municipality. So I don't know, a very small town, even so they have just one bar. Imagine they just have one bar, one restaurant, and they suddenly win the regional tournament. That's gonna have a huge impact for that bar, for that restaurant. So it will have an impact, but you're gonna have to measure it at the very local level.
Absolutely. Another question that's come to mind when you're presenting is within Europe, you've probably got some leagues that run in the summer and some that run over the autumn and winter and spring. So I just wondered what you did because I guess the data for Nuts 3 growth would be annual data, and then you got the seasons. I wondered what you did with that overlap.
No, good point. I couldn't play with this so it's the exact season of. I just took a look at, so if I know the year when you win the title, whether it's in May, April, or so say I win the title in 2024. So I'm gonna look at growth in the following years, 25, 26, 27. So I may be either missing some months or overlapping some months, depending on but I hope that doesn't have huge of an impact. But yeah, ideally, I would look at exactly when you win and then measure economic growth. But I don't have that data, no? That Eurostar doesn't measure the data like that. So
yeah, I mean, I guess the leagues that run in the summer, so their competitions are only one season. They're probably northern. I mean, what I don't know.
Probably fewer than I could probably
Finland or something like that.
Check and do some sensitivity analysis with that. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah.
Presumably they win the league in October or something,
Sure,
rather than April or May or something. So it's fewer months for an effect. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions and comments?
Well, just following on that, James, I think it's in terms of the number of events of qualification for Champions League and those tournaments, is those matches can be over 2 years essentially. And so before January and after January you'll have matches. So and the league periods also determines when you actually participate in that. So I think that's something to consider. That just goes back to the question of what is the nature of this growth that you're expecting? Is it in tourism, or what is the industry that you would say is growing? Is it the number of events, or is it something else?
No, as I was
question.
Yeah, as I was saying, I don't know if I'm answering that question, but so it's everything. So again, take the example of Leicester. So one thing is direct money. So winning the title comes with a huge check, right? So that's a lot of money. And from the sponsor, so if you want direct money that goes to that club in that city, and the players live in that city and the managers live in that city, right? So that's direct money. It's like winning the lottery, right? So a lot of money goes there directly. It's the check that comes with the league. But on top of that is everything that you mentioned. It's gonna attract visitors. That has been shown, for instance, for Leicester. So after the team winning the Premier League, visitors to the region increased. I think they doubled in the next 2 years. And that, of course, means more bars, more shops, more expenditure, more employment. It's a little bit of everything. It's a boost to the local economy, as I was saying, and this is especially important in smaller places, right? In a city like Paris, so there will be more visitors and everything, but Paris already has a huge economy, right? But if you're talking about a smaller region, right? So this can be a boost to the local economy, right? You're gonna have more expenditure, more employment, and probably a domino effect, right? So and I think so that we think that explains the persistence that I said. It's not just like 1 year, it's 2-3 years. So this boost to the local economy has a domino effect, as you were saying. Maybe there are now so people going to the stadium that a shopping mall opens nearby or something. And so again, it's just the boost to the local economy.
So I'd say again, in the case of Leicester, I would imagine the championship year is still catching up on the lag of the promotion.
True. That's true. I acknowledge that. Yeah. So there is some overlap in between. That's why we want to have relegation, promotion, everything, because 2 or 3 things may be happening at the same time, or just the year after the year before. But in any case, is success of the team, right? So that means that the team is doing well. It got promoted. It won the Premier League. So it reinforces the argument. So the fact that the team is doing well in one or several competitions is boosting the local economy. So my point is not the title. My point, so to clarify, my argument is not that it's winning the title. It's performance. It's doing well. That it happens that for me it's easy to measure by winning the title. But any sort of measure of good performance, if I don't know, in Barcelona we're very proud of the team playing nice. Even when we lose matches, we say no, but it was fun to watch. Even that then so means that I want to go to the bar, meet my friends, watch the game. That would also be performance. The fact that people are enjoying watching the team play, the team, even if it doesn't win the league, that's why I would like to have more measures. But if it's doing well, that probably has an impact on the local economy.
I think, going back to the England question, I think there's something really interesting there, because you're probably aware that the financial disparity between the Premier League and the Championship is vast. It's in terms of hundreds of millions of pounds between finishing 20th in the Premier League and first in the Championship. And that presumably has, as you say, that's an injection of money into a local area. It's a very big difference from one season to the next.
Sure. Yeah.
And also, to go back to the Leicester point, their trajectory was actually they won the Championship, and then they just escaped relegation back to the Championship, and then the following season they won the Premier League. So if you're talking about your idea of just escaping relegation as success, they had 3 years of success.
Sure.
On the bounce. So it could be a very big effect.
Yeah.
Go.
No, go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say how many. Because obviously Leicester's the really, the example that we've used quite a bit. Are there lots of other examples that you've got? You're dependent variable in that case. How many cases do you have roughly?
Sure. Yeah. So yeah, like Leicester in the sense of everything that you mentioned, yes, it's quite unique. But in terms of the way we define it as unexpectedly winning the league, that's if I'm 39, if I don't remember wrong, 39 cases throughout the 26 leagues in the 20 years that we study. This happened in 39 cases. It was, to give you an example, it was also Valencia in Spain. Valencia had never, it's not a usual winner. It's a good club, and then suddenly won the league in, I think it was 2006. Then in Germany, you have a couple of cases also with, don't remember which club was it. Yeah, and then so the main leagues in Italy, we also had a couple of cases. Yeah. So and then lesser known teams, but for the National League being unexpected.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Is there any indication of any reverse impact, as in a team failing to do well? Do we find that growth slows down the season?
Sure. No, I could explore it. That's very interesting. Yeah, it's a little bit connected to what we were saying in terms of if you get relegated. But yeah, for top clubs, if you don't do really well, then everyone is disappointed. So I haven't studied this, but it could be fun, because probably,
Yeah, because I think the relegation, then you'd say, based on this, you're saying if you do well, more people are interested in coming, right? If you say you are relegated, or the surprise or whatever, but you got relegated, would we see then that in that region the following year there would be a slowing growth, or compared to when in the Premier League, say, or in one of the top divisions?
Sure. So I haven't done the empirical exercise, so all I can do is give you my opinion. But so for my experience, so again here in Barcelona, when we lost Messi and we started losing with everyone, and Bayern Munich scored 8 goals against us and all that, so the city was quite depressed. Like again, Sunday or Saturday was always going to the bar to watch games, and everyone was like Barca, yeah. And suddenly all of these bars were empty. Like no one is. So if you were gonna watch the game, you watch it at home, not talking to anyone, like complaining. So yeah, probably. I think. I mean, of course, people, if especially with big clubs, right? If the club is underperforming, so probably it's gonna have an impact also in the sense of fans to the stadium, merchandise being sold. So I don't know whether I mean, I think what would be interesting is to see the symmetry or asymmetry of the effect between doing well and underperforming.
Probably something else there going back, carrying on with the financial aspect of this. And you probably can't necessarily capture this, but most football clubs, I think, probably around the world are loss making, right? So the Premier League pats itself on the back for its teams only losing £100 million every 3 years. That's seen as some kind of success. So that in principle is depends where that money comes from to fund those losses. But in principle, that if your owners are from the Middle East, say, and they plow all that money into Paris or Manchester or wherever, in principle, that's an injection, isn't it? I don't know.
Sure, yeah.
Okay, any more questions and comments for David?
All right.
Thank you, David. Really interesting presentation. And wish you all the best as you go forward with your research. And
thank you, James.
Yep, thanks
you to everyone. I was gonna say that it was very fun, and thanks for all the comments. It was really richful for me to present in front of you. So thanks a lot.
Okay, well, thank you, David, and thank you everyone for your comments as well, for the discussion. And we will return next week, as mentioned earlier on. We've got Jennifer Dorling from Bond University, and she will be presenting mental toughness in sports people. So that's January the 31st next week, which, as mentioned earlier, is also the submission deadline for the Math Sport 11 conference in Luxembourg. So I wish you all the best and a great weekend, be it sporting or otherwise. I look forward to seeing you all again this time next week.
You too. Take care, guys. Thanks a lot.
Cheers, David.
Have a good weekend. Bye-bye.
You too.